I knew something was wrong the moment I woke up on my wedding day. Not the usual jitters that brides get. This was different. A heaviness in my chest, like my body was trying to warn me about something my mind hadn't caught up to yet. The lilies arrived at 9 a.m. I remember checking my phone as the florist knocked, seeing a text from Thomas. "Can't wait to see you walk down the aisle. I love you more than you'll ever know." I should have known then. The people who love you most never feel the need to quantify it. "These are gorgeous," I said to my best friend Cadence as she arranged the bouquets around my hotel suite. The white petals looked so pure against the champagne-colored bridesmaid dresses hanging by the window. "Thomas has good taste," she replied, adjusting a stem. "In flowers and women." I smiled, but something about the way she said it made my stomach twist. Had her voice hitched slightly? Was there something she wasn't telling me? My phone buzzed again. Kimberly, my sister and maid of honor. "Running late. Traffic. Don't panic. Be there in 20. "My sister's running late," I told Cadence, rolling my eyes. Typical Kimberly. "She'll be here," Cadence said, not meeting my eyes. I walked to the bathroom, needing a moment alone. The woman in the mirror looked back at me with uncertainty clouding her eyes. Me, Isla Barnes, about to become Isla Jensen in less than 5 hours. I'd spent 28 years becoming myself, and now I was changing again. My phone buzzed in my hand. Thomas again, but this time the message wasn't for me. "I can't do this to her. We need to talk before the ceremony." My heart stopped. The message preview showed on my lock screen, but when I opened the app, there was nothing there. Wrong conversation, wrong thread. I felt sick. With trembling fingers, I opened his contact and pressed call, straight to voicemail. I tried again, same result. "Cadence." My voice sounded strange even to my own ears. "Can you try calling Thomas?" She appeared in the doorway, concern etched across her face. "Everything okay?" "Just humor me?" She dialed, then frowned. "Voicemail." I nodded, trying to keep my breathing steady. "I need to check something. I'll be right back." "Isla, you can't leave. You're getting your makeup done in 15 minutes. But I was already grabbing my purse, slipping on shoes, moving toward the door with single-minded purpose. "I'll be quick. Cover for me with the makeup artist." The elevator ride to Thomas's suite felt eternal. We'd followed tradition, separate rooms the night before the wedding. How quaint that seemed now, with dread coursing through my veins. I knocked softly at first, then harder when there was no answer. The door to the adjoining room opened instead, and Mohammed, Thomas's best man, peered out. "Isla, what are you—" "Where is he?" I asked, my voice surprisingly calm. Mohammed's expression told me everything. Pity. That's what I saw there. He went for a walk, said he needed to clear his head. "With my sister?" The words hung in the air between us. Mohammed's silence was confirmation enough. "How long have you known?" I asked. He looked at the floor. "I only suspected. I tried to talk to him, but—" "Save it." I pushed past him into Thomas's room. His tux hung pristinely on the closet door. His overnight bag sat open on the luggage rack, toiletries arranged neatly on the bathroom counter, and there, on the nightstand, was his other phone. Yes, his other phone. The one I discovered 2 weeks ago when I borrowed his jacket and felt something hard in the inner pocket. The one with the passcode I'd figured out in seconds because he used the same 4 digits for everything. The one that contained hundreds of messages between him and my sister. I picked it up now, unlocked it, and scrolled through their most recent exchange. "Kay, we can't keep doing this. It's killing me. T, I know, I'm going to tell her." "Kay, when?" T, today, before the ceremony. "Kay, meet me in the garden." 11 a.m. It was 11:17. I walked to the window. From here, I could see the hotel's garden, with its stone pathways and carefully tended flower beds. And there they were, Thomas in his dress shirt and slacks, no jacket, gesturing emphatically. Kimberly in a robe, her hair half done, tears streaming down her face. My sister, my fiancé. I should have screamed, should have thrown things, should have run down there and created a scene. Instead, I felt a strange calm descend over me, like I was watching someone else's life implode. Ayla. Mohammed's voice was gentle behind me. I'm so sorry. Don't be, I said, not turning around. I'm not the first bride to be betrayed, and I won't be the last. I took a deep breath, then another, turned away from the window, looked Mohammed directly in the eyes. The ceremony starts at 2 p.m. Make sure he's there. What? But, make sure they're both there, I said, my voice steady. Tell them whatever you need to, but I want everyone in their places when I walk down that aisle. Mohammed stared at me, confusion evident on his face. Isla, you can't possibly still want to go through with the wedding. I smiled then, and something in my expression made him take a step back. Oh, I have no intention of marrying Thomas today, but I knew about their affair long before I ever reached the altar, and now everyone will know too. 2 hours later, I stood just outside the reception hall, my wedding dress like armor around me. The makeup artist had done her job well. No one would guess I'd been crying. My face was a perfect mask of bridal serenity. Are you sure about this? Cadence whispered, adjusting my veil. Her eyes were wide with concern. We could just cancel, tell everyone you're sick, and let them get away with it. I smoothed down the front of my dress. Not a chance. The wedding coordinator gave me a thumbs up from the doorway. The music had started. Not the processional yet, just the soft prelude that would accompany the seating of guests. I could hear the murmur of conversation, the rustle of programs, the occasional laugh. They had no idea what was coming. Did you set it up? I asked Mohammed, who stood awkwardly to the side, loyalty clearly torn. He nodded. The projector's ready, but Isla, this is going to destroy them both. They destroyed me first. My voice didn't even sound like my own anymore. Did Thomas show up? He's at the altar. Looks like he's about to throw up. Good. I'd spent 2 weeks planning this moment. 2 weeks of smiling through final fittings and rehearsal dinners while carrying the weight of their betrayal. 2 weeks of forwarding their messages to my email, taking screenshots, creating a timeline of their affair. Kimberly appeared from around the corner, her bridesmaid dress fitting her perfectly. Of course it did. She'd insisted on the design, claiming it would flatter everyone in the bridal party. Now I understood why she'd been so invested. There you are. She rushed toward me, face flushed. I've been looking everywhere. Are you okay? You disappeared earlier. The audacity, the absolute audacity. I'm fine, I said coolly. Just needed some air. She studied my face. You seem different. Do I? I tilted my head. How strange. The coordinator signaled that it was time. The bridesmaids lined up, Kimberly at the front as maid of honor. She gave me one last look. Was that guilt I saw, before plastering on a smile and stepping through the doorway. My father appeared at my side, offering his arm. Ready, sweetheart? I wasn't, but I would never be more ready than I was in this moment. Actually, Dad, I said quietly, I need to walk in alone. He frowned. That's not the plan. Plans change. I kissed his cheek. Trust me. Confusion clouded his eyes, but he nodded slowly. If that's what you want. The wedding march began. Everyone stood. I took a deep breath and stepped into the doorway. Thomas waited at the altar, handsome in his tuxedo, his face a picture of tortured indecision. Kimberly stood opposite, unable to meet my eyes. 200 guests turned to watch me, their expressions soft with the particular joy reserved for weddings. I didn't move. The music continued, but I remained frozen in the doorway. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Thomas shifted uncomfortably. The officiant looked concerned. Finally, I stepped forward, not down the aisle, but to the side table where a laptop sat connected to the projector. I pressed a single key. The screen behind the altar lit up. A text message appeared, enormous and damning. T, I can't stop thinking about last night. When can I see you again? Then another. Day. This is wrong. She's my sister. And another. T. I've never felt this way about anyone, not even Isla. Gasps echoed through the hall. I pressed another key, and the messages continued to scroll, a digital testament to their betrayal. Dates, times, explicit details, all laid bare before our friends and family. Isla, stop! Thomas had finally found his voice, stepping down from the altar. This isn't what? I cut him off, my voice carrying through the stunned silence. Isn't appropriate. Neither was sleeping with my sister while planning our wedding. Kimberly had crumpled to the floor, sobbing. My mother was on her feet, one hand covering her mouth in horror. My father stood rigid with shock. I trusted you both, I continued, my voice steady despite the hurricane inside me. I loved you both, and this is how you repaid that love. Thomas reached for me. Please, let me explain. I stepped back. There's nothing to explain. The messages speak for themselves. We were going to tell you, Kimberly choked out. Today, before what? I turned to her. Before you let me walk down the aisle, or after you'd watched me pledge my life to a man who couldn't even be faithful before the wedding. The room was utterly silent now. I looked around at the shocked faces of our guests, people who had traveled from across the country to celebrate our love. What a joke. The reception is cancelled, I announced. But please, help yourselves to the champagne. I think we could all use a drink. I turned to leave, then paused. One final twist of the knife. Oh, and Thomas, the honeymoon tickets are non-refundable. Maybe you and Kimberly can go instead. I hear Bali is beautiful this time of year. I walked out, head high, the weight of 200 stairs on my back. In the lobby, I finally let out the breath I'd been holding. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clear. Cadence caught up to me, breathless. I don't even have words. I do, I said, unpinning my veil. Liberation. She looked at me with a mixture of awe and concern. What now? I smiled, and there was nothing warm in it. If they thought I'd quietly disappear, they were sorely mistaken. 3 days after what people were now calling the wedding massacre, I sat in a secluded corner of Riverside Park, watching fallen leaves skitter across the path. The autumn air carried a chill that matched the coldness that had settled in my chest. You're early. The voice came from behind me. I turned to see Jasmine approaching, her dark hair whipping around her face in the breeze. She'd been Kimberly's best friend since college, until some mysterious falling out 2 years ago. I'd always liked her, though we'd never been close. Thanks for meeting me, I said as she sat beside me on the bench. Are you kidding? When you texted, I nearly dropped my phone. She studied my face. How are you holding up? I've been better. I attempted a smile, but I've survived worse than a cheating fiancé and a backstabbing sister. Have you, though? Her directness caught me off guard. I looked away. Maybe not. We sat in silence for a moment, watching a jogger pass by with a golden retriever trotting alongside. So, Jasmine finally said, you want to know why Kimberly and I stopped speaking? I'm guessing it wasn't just a petty argument over borrowed clothes. She laughed without humor. No, it was because of Thomas. My heart stuttered. What? Not like that, she clarified quickly. I never slept with him, but I caught them together 2 years ago, at a conference in Chicago. The timeline hit me like a physical blow. 2 years, they've been on and off from what I gathered. I confronted her about it, told her she needed to come clean to you or I would. She swore it was over, that it had been a mistake. Jasmine's eyes hardened. A week later, she'd systematically turned all our mutual friends against me, claimed I'd tried to seduce her boyfriend at the time. Classic Kimberly deflection. I pressed my palms against my eyes, trying to process this new information. 2 years, not a recent indiscretion, not cold feet before the wedding. 2 years of lies. Why didn't you tell me anyway? I asked, unable to keep the accusation from my voice. I tried calling you once. You never called back. She shrugged. Then I heard you were engaged, and I figured, maybe it really was over between them. Maybe telling you would just cause pain for no reason. I remembered the missed call now, a number I didn't recognize during a hectic week at work. One voicemail I'd deleted without listening to. I should have tried harder, Jasmine admitted. I'm sorry, Isla. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. So, what's your plan? She asked after a moment. The wedding stunt was epic, but knowing Kimberly, she's already spinning it to make herself the victim somehow. She is. I pulled out my phone, showing Jasmine the Instagram post Kimberly had shared yesterday. A black and white selfie, eyes downcast, with a long caption about mistakes, forgiveness, and the complexity of love. It had over 2,000 sympathetic comments. Unbelievable, Jasmine muttered. She always lands on her feet. Not this time. I put my phone away. I want to make sure they both lose something that actually matters to them. Like what? Thomas is up for partner at his firm. The decision comes down next month. Jasmine raised an eyebrow. And you know something that could derail that? I know he's been falsifying billable hours. I found spreadsheets on his laptop, the real ones versus what he submits to the partners. That's actually serious, like career-ending serious. I nodded. And Kimberly's been shortlisted for that curator position at the Brennan Gallery. Her dream job, Jasmine mused. What's your angle there? I'm not sure yet. That's partly why I wanted to talk to you. You know her better than almost anyone. Jasmine was quiet for a long moment, picking at a loose thread on her sleeve. Can I ask you something, Isla? What's your end game here? Will ruining their careers actually make you feel better? The question caught me off guard. Would it? I honestly didn't know. I just want them to understand what they've done, I said finally. I want them to lose something they care about, the way I lost something I cared about. And then what? Then I move on, I guess. Jasmine studied me with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. You know what made me finally get over what Kimberly did to me? Realizing that carrying that anger was like drinking poison and expecting her to die. That's very zen of you, I said, unable to keep the edge from my voice. But I'm not there yet. I get it. She stood up, brushing leaves from her jeans. I'll help you, Isla, but just be careful. Revenge has a way of changing people. As if I hadn't already been changed irrevocably. There's one more thing you should know, Jasmine said, her expression darkening. The affair wasn't the only betrayal. What do you mean? The startup Thomas invested in last year? The one that's about to go public? I nodded. Everyone knew about it. Thomas had put in a significant chunk of our wedding fund, promising it would triple before the big day. He'd been right. Kimberly's name is on those investment documents too. They've been business partners all along. The world seemed to tilt beneath me. It wasn't just sex. It wasn't just emotions. They had been building a future together, financially, practically, while I planned our wedding. How do you know this? I managed to ask. I still have friends at Kimberly's firm. The paperwork crossed someone's desk. Jasmine's eyes held genuine sympathy. I'm sorry, Isla. I stood up, suddenly needing to move, to do something with the energy coursing through me. Don't be sorry, I said, my resolve hardening. Be ready. The web they've spun is about to tangle them beyond belief. The autumn chill seeped through my coat as I stared at the email on my phone, my third attempt at revenge fizzling before my eyes. Ms. Barnes, while we appreciate your concerns regarding Thomas Jensen's professional conduct, we require more substantial evidence before proceeding with any investigation. Without documentation of the alleged billing discrepancies, we cannot take action. I deleted the email with a frustrated tap. The managing partner at Thomas's law firm wasn't going to act on an anonymous tip, and I'd been too cautious to attach my name or the actual evidence. The spreadsheets I'd mentioned to Jasmine were on Thomas's password-protected laptop, not in my possession. Strike one. My attempt to contact the Brennan Gallery's board about Kimberly's questionable professional ethics had similarly stalled. They'd politely informed me that her personal life had no bearing on her curatorial capabilities. Strike two. And just yesterday, my carefully orchestrated plan to have their investment connection exposed through a financial blogger had fallen apart when the blogger demanded proof I couldn't provide. Strike 3. You look like you're plotting someone's murder, Mohammed said, sliding into the booth across from me. The coffee shop buzzed with midday energy around us. Not murder, just mild career destruction. I put my phone away. Thanks for meeting me. Mohammed had been Thomas's best man and one of his closest friends since college. That he'd agreed to see me at all was surprising. I almost didn't come, he admitted, as if reading my thoughts. Thomas would lose his mind if he knew. Are you still speaking to him? Mohammed sighed, running a hand over his close-cropped hair. Barely. What he did was messed up, Isla. I told him that. A small vindication, but I'd take it. Have you been talking to anyone? He asked, genuine concern in his eyes. A therapist, maybe. I'm fine. You don't look fine. You look exhausted. I was. Sleep had become a luxury I couldn't afford. My nights spent cycling through anger, plotting, and occasional bouts of devastating grief. I'm handling it, I insisted. The barista called Mohammed's name, and he went to retrieve our drinks. I watched him chat easily with her, his natural warmth evident even in this brief interaction. He'd always been the peacemaker in our group, the one who made sure everyone felt included. 1 oat milk latte, he said, placing it before me. Still your favorite, right? I nodded, touched that he remembered. Isla, he began carefully, I need to ask, what are you hoping to accomplish here? With all these attempts at payback? Justice, I said automatically. Is that what this is? I stirred my latte, avoiding his gaze. They humiliated me in front of everyone we know. They betrayed me for years. They were building a future together while I was picking out wedding centerpieces. I know, and it's unforgivable. He leaned forward. But this path you're on, it's changing you. Maybe I needed to change. Into someone consumed by revenge. That's not the Ela I know. The Isla you know was a fool, I snapped, louder than intended. A few heads turned our way. I lowered my voice. She trusted people who didn't deserve it. Mohammed was quiet for a moment. Thomas came to see me last night. He was drunk, crying. Something twisted in my chest. Am I supposed to feel sorry for him? No, but he said something that's been bothering me. He said you knew about them before the wedding, that you found his other phone 2 weeks earlier. I stiffened. So, why go through with the ceremony at all? Why not just confront them when you found out? The question hung between us. I'd asked myself the same thing during sleepless nights, because a private confrontation would have been too easy for them, I finally said. They would have apologized, cried, begged forgiveness. Kimberly would have played the confused little sister led astray. Thomas would have blamed cold feet or temporary insanity. And you wanted them to suffer more publicly. I wanted consequences they couldn't charm their way out of. Mohammed studied me. And now? What do you want now? The truth slipped out before I could stop it. I don't know anymore. My phone buzzed with a text from Jasmine. Found something. Call me ASAP. I should go, I said, gathering my things. Mohammed caught my wrist gently. Isla, wait. There's something else you should know. The seriousness in his tone made me pause. Thomas isn't just upset about the wedding. He's worried about what else you might know. About what? The startup investment. There's something not right about it. He wouldn't give details, but he's terrified of an audit. My pulse quickened. Did he say why? No, but whatever it is, it's big enough that he's talking about leaving the country for a while. This was it, the thread I needed to pull. When? Soon. Days, not weeks. I stood up, my mind racing. Thanks for telling me. I'm not telling you so you can use it against him, Mohammed said, his expression troubled. I'm telling you because I'm worried about you getting caught in the fallout. Whatever they're involved in, it might be bigger than you realize. I can handle it. Can you? Because from where I'm sitting, you've spent the last week trying and failing to exact revenge instead of actually processing what happened. His words hit harder than I wanted to admit. Maybe I'm not ready to process it yet, I said quietly. And maybe that's exactly what you need to do. He stood too, facing me. The Ela I know is stronger than this. She doesn't need revenge to move forward. I wanted to believe him. Part of me even knew he was right. But another part, the part that woke up every morning with the image of Thomas and Kimberly together, couldn't let go. I appreciate your concern, I said, stepping back, but some shadows are more tenacious than others. You're absolutely sure about this? I asked Jasmine, staring at the documents spread across her kitchen table. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows through her apartment windows. The paper trail doesn't lie. She tapped a highlighted section of the investment agreement. Thomas and Kimberly didn't just invest in this startup, they're using it to launder money. My stomach lurched. This was far beyond billing fraud or ethical violations. This was criminal. But where's the money coming from? I asked. That's the million-dollar question. Jasmine pushed another document toward me. But whatever it is, it's big enough that they created shell companies to hide it. And look who else is involved. I followed her finger to a signature at the bottom of the page. Martin Reeves, Thomas's boss and the managing partner, who had dismissed my anonymous tip. Holy shit, I whispered. This goes way beyond your sister sleeping with your fiancé, Isla. You've stumbled onto something dangerous. I sat back, trying to process the implications. No wonder my earlier attempts at revenge had failed. I'd been trying to expose twigs while there was an entire forest of corruption. What exactly did your friend at the financial firm say? I asked. That the SEC has been quietly investigating this group for months. They don't have enough evidence yet, but they're circling. The coffee shop bell jingled as the door opened. I glanced up automatically, then froze. Kimberly stood in the entrance, scanning the cafe. Her eyes locked with mine, widening in surprise. For a moment, neither of us moved. Speak of the devil, Jasmine muttered. I hadn't seen my sister since the wedding. She looked thinner, her usually perfect appearance slightly frayed at the edges. Without makeup, the shadows under her eyes were pronounced. To my shock, she walked directly to our table. Isla, she said, her voice carefully neutral. I've been trying to reach you. I've been busy. I began gathering the documents, sliding them into Jasmine's folder. With what? Planning your next public humiliation. There was a bitter edge to her words. That's rich coming from you. Kimberly's eyes flicked to Jasmine, then back to me. Can we talk? Privately? Anything you have to say, you can say in front of Jasmine. Fine. She pulled out a chair and sat uninvited. Thomas is planning to leave the country. Tonight. My heart skipped. Mohammed mentioned he might. Did Mohammed also mention that Thomas is planning to take all the investment money with him, including your portion? I stared at her. My portion? The wedding fund. Your savings that he convinced you to invest. She leaned forward. He's cutting me out too, Isla. He's taking everything. Jasmine made a skeptical noise. And we're supposed to believe you suddenly care about Isla's financial well-being. Kimberly ignored her, keeping her eyes on me. I know you hate me. You have every right to. But Thomas is screwing us both now, and I thought you should know. I studied my sister's face, searching for the tells I'd known since childhood. The slight flutter of her eyelids when she lied. The way she touched her collarbone when she was hiding something. But her gaze remained steady. Why would he cut you out? I asked. You're his partner in all this. Something flickered across her face. Things changed after the wedding, after what you did. After what I did, I laughed incredulously. You mean exposing the truth? You have no idea what you've done, she hissed, suddenly intense. The people involved in this investment, they don't tolerate public attention. Thomas is running because he's scared, and he should be. A chill ran through me. What people, Kimberly? Who exactly are you involved with? She glanced nervously around the cafe. I can't talk about it here. Convenient, Jasmine muttered. Kimberly reached across the table, grabbing my wrist. Her fingers were ice cold. Isla, listen to me. Whatever you think of me right now, I'm trying to help you. Thomas has a meeting at the Westlake Hotel at 7 tonight, room 412. He's collecting the last payment before he disappears. And you're telling me this out of sisterly concern? I pulled my hand away. I'm telling you because you deserve to get your money back. She stood up. What you do with this information is up to you. As she turned to leave, I called after her. Why should I believe anything you say? She paused, looking back with an expression I couldn't read. Because despite everything, you're still my sister, and I've done enough damage. The door closed behind her with a soft chime. Well, that was dramatic, Jasmine said after a moment. You don't actually believe her, do you? I stared at the door, my thoughts racing. I don't know, but if Thomas is really leaving tonight... This could be a trap, Isla. She could be setting you up. Or she could be telling the truth. I checked my watch, 5:30 p.m. There's only one way to find out. Jasmine grabbed my arm. You can't seriously be thinking of going to that hotel. I need to know what's happening. And if there's any chance of getting my money back... This isn't about money anymore, Jasmine insisted. These documents suggest serious criminal activity. We should take this to the authorities. She was right. The rational thing would be to walk away, let the legal system handle it. But something in Kimberly's eyes had gotten to me. Genuine fear. Not for herself, but for me. I'll be careful, I promised, gathering my things. I'll just observe from a distance. If anything seems off, I'll leave immediately. Jasmine looked unconvinced. At least let me come with you. No, if this is dangerous, I'm not dragging you into it. Isla, I need to do this, Jasmine. I met her gaze steadily. But I promise to call you the second I'm done. She reluctantly nodded. Fine, but remember what I said about revenge changing people. Don't let it change you into someone who takes stupid risks. As I stepped outside into the gathering dusk, I realized with startling clarity that this had stopped being about revenge somewhere along the way. Now it was about truth, and perhaps, in some strange way, about protecting the sister who had betrayed me. Some alliances, it seemed, were forged in fire. The Westlake Hotel lobby hummed with quiet luxury, plush carpets muffling footsteps, crystal chandeliers casting warm light over leather armchairs. I sat in a corner, nursing an overpriced gin and tonic, watching the elevator bank through the reflection in a decorative mirror. 6:55 p.m. My pulse quickened as the minute hand ticked closer to 7. I'd changed into a black dress and heels, hair pulled back, anonymous enough to blend with the hotel's upscale clientele, yet put together enough that no one would question my presence. The perfect disguise, a woman waiting for someone who wasn't coming. The elevator doors opened. Thomas stepped out, his familiar tall frame instantly recognizable. He wore a charcoal suit I'd never seen before, carrying a slim leather briefcase. His face looked gaunt, the confident swagger I once found attractive, replaced by furtive glances. He headed for the elevators, serving the higher floors, not noticing me in my shadowed corner. I waited 30 seconds, then followed. The fourth-floor corridor was silent, thick carpet swallowing my footsteps. I moved carefully past numbered doors until I reached 412. Pressing my ear against the cool wood, I heard muffled voices inside, Thomas's distinctive baritone and another man's deeper rumble. Not what we agreed, the stranger was saying. The full amount was due today. I know. Thomas's voice had that placating tone I'd heard him use with difficult clients. But with everything that's happened, my wedding, the publicity, your personal problems don't concern us. I just need 2 more days. The final transfers are processing. A heavy silence followed. Mr. Jensen. The man's voice dropped lower, forcing me to press harder against the door. Our organization has been very patient. That patience has limits. My heart hammered against my ribs. Kimberly's warning echoed in my mind. The people involved in this investment, they don't tolerate public attention. The door handle turned suddenly. I jerked back, looking frantically for somewhere to hide. Too late. The door swung open, revealing a broad-shouldered man with silver temples and cold eyes. He assessed me with a single glance. "It seems we have company," he said over his shoulder. Thomas appeared behind him, his face draining of color when he saw me. "Isla? What the hell are you doing here?" My mind raced for a plausible explanation. "I was looking for you. The front desk said you were in this room." The silver-haired man smiled thinly. "A friend of yours, Mr. Jensen?" Thomas swallowed visibly. "My ex-fiancé." "How interesting." He stepped aside. "Please join us." It wasn't a request. I entered the room on wooden legs, adrenaline flooding my system. The suite was spacious, with a sitting area where papers were spread across a coffee table. A laptop glowed with spreadsheets I recognized from Jasmine's documents. "Martin Reeves," the man introduced himself, extending a hand. "I believe you contacted my office recently." I froze. Thomas's boss. The managing partner, whose signature I'd seen on those documents. "I don't know what you're talking about," I managed. "No?" His smile didn't reach his eyes. "An anonymous tip about Thomas's billing practices. That wasn't you." Thomas stared at me. "You did what?" "Perhaps we should all sit down," Martin suggested, gesturing to the sofa. "It seems we have much to discuss." I remained standing. "Actually, I should go. This was a mistake. I'm afraid I must insist." Martin's tone hardened as he closed the door behind me. "Especially given your recent investigation into our investment activities." My blood turned to ice. How could he possibly know about that? "Isla, what have you done?" Thomas whispered, genuine fear in his eyes. "Me? What have you done?" I turned to face him fully. "Money laundering, Thomas. Shell companies. Was that before or after you started sleeping with my sister?" Martin sighed. "Domestic drama. How tedious." He moved to the window, looking out at the city lights. "Ms. Barnes, I'll be direct. You've become a problem. Your wedding spectacle created unwanted attention. Your subsequent digging has created risk." "I haven't told anyone anything," I lied. "No, not even your new friend Jasmine Hunt, or perhaps Mohammed Robinson." The casual mention of my friend sent a chill down my spine. He'd been watching me. "What do you want?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. "For you to disappear." He turned back to face me. "Not permanently, of course, just away, a long vacation perhaps, with the appropriate financial incentive." "You're trying to buy me off?" "I'm offering you an opportunity to walk away unscathed." He nodded toward the briefcase. $500,000. Tax-free. More than enough to start fresh somewhere pleasant. My mind reeled. This was surreal. Being offered a bribe in a hotel room by my ex-fiancé's corrupt boss. "And if I refuse?" Martin's expression hardened. "Then I cannot guarantee your safety, or the safety of those you've involved." The threat hung in the air, clear and chilling. Thomas stepped forward. "Isla, please, take the money, walk away." I looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time since entering the room. The man I'd planned to marry was terrified, a cornered animal willing to sacrifice anyone to save himself. "You're pathetic," I whispered. "I'm a survivor," he countered. The clock on the wall ticked loudly in the silence that followed. I had seconds to decide. Take the money and run, or stand my ground and face whatever consequences came. "I need to think," I said finally. Martin checked his watch. "You have until midnight, not a minute longer." He picked up the briefcase, holding it out to me. "Consider this a good faith deposit. The rest comes when you provide proof you've left the city." My hand trembled as I took the case. It was heavier than I expected, the weight of corruption made tangible. "I'll expect your answer by phone," Martin said, writing a number on the hotel notepad. "Come alone. Tell no one about our conversation." As I left the room on unsteady legs, Thomas caught my arm. "Isla," he murmured, his voice strained. "Whatever you decide, I'm sorry. For everything." I pulled away without answering. In the elevator, I leaned against the wall, my reflection fractured in the mirrored panels. A woman I barely recognized, holding blood money and facing an impossible choice. The truth was clear now. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about survival. And in justice, there are no black and white choices. The briefcase sat on my coffee table like a ticking bomb. I hadn't opened it, couldn't bring myself to look at the money that was supposed to buy my silence and safety. My apartment felt foreign around me, as if I'd stepped into someone else's life. My phone buzzed for the 5th time. Jasmine again. I'd been ignoring her calls since leaving the hotel, needing space to think. But time was running out. The clock on my wall read 10:37 p.m., less than an hour and a half until Martin's deadline. When my doorbell rang, I nearly jumped out of my skin. Through the peephole, I saw Mohammed standing in the hallway, concern etched across his face. "Jasmine sent me," he said when I opened the door. "She's worried sick. You promised to call her after the hotel." I stepped back to let him in. I needed to think. His eyes landed on the briefcase. What happened? The whole story spilled out. Martin's threats, the bribe, the midnight deadline. With each word, the weight on my chest grew lighter, as if speaking the truth aloud was itself a form of resistance. Mohammed listened without interrupting, his expression growing increasingly grave. "This is way over our heads, Isla," he said when I finished. "These people are dangerous. You need to go to the police." "With what? I have no proof. It's my word against a respected managing partner and my ex-fiancé." I gestured to the briefcase. "And now I've accepted money from them. How does that look? Better than being found dead in your apartment." His bluntness startled me. Martin Reeves doesn't make empty threats. My phone buzzed again, a text this time from an unknown number. "Have you made your decision?" "That's him," I whispered. Mohammed read the message over my shoulder. "Tell him you'll take the deal. Buy yourself some time." "And then what? Run, hide, let them get away with everything?" "Yes, if it keeps you alive." I shook my head. "I can't. Not after everything." "This isn't about Thomas and Kimberly anymore. This is about—" "It was never just about them," I interrupted. "It was about justice, about consequences for actions, about not letting people walk all over me." My phone rang. Kimberly. I stared at her name on the screen, torn between answering and ignoring her like I had Jasmine. "You should take it," Mohammed said quietly. I accepted the call, putting it on speaker. "What do you want?" "Where are you?" Kimberly's voice was tight with tension. "Are you home?" "Why?" "Listen to me very carefully. Martin's men are coming for you. They don't trust you to take the deal." My blood ran cold. "How do you know this?" "Because I'm with Thomas. He just got the order to clean out the office, destroy all evidence. They're tying up loose ends, Isla. That includes you." Mohammed was already moving, checking the locks on my windows. "How much time do we have?" he called. "Who's that?" Kimberly asked sharply. "Mohammed, he's here with me." "Good, you're not alone." She exhaled audibly. "I don't know how much time. Not long. You need to get out of there. Why are you helping me?" I couldn't keep the suspicion from my voice. "You chose Thomas over me. You chose the money." "And it was the biggest mistake of my life." Her voice cracked. "I can't undo what I did to you, but I can try to keep you safe." Mohammed returned to my side. "We need to go. Now." "Where?" I asked, panic rising. "If they're watching the building—" "My car's in the back alley. If we move fast, we might make it." Kimberly spoke urgently. "Isla, listen. Thomas made copies of everything. All the transactions, the shell companies, the client list. It's insurance. He has it on a drive." "Where?" "He won't tell me, but it exists. If you can find it—" The line went dead. "Kimberly?" I tried calling back. Nothing. "We don't have time," Mohammed insisted, grabbing my coat from the hook. "We need to move." A plan crystallized in my mind. The office. If Thomas is destroying evidence, the drive must be there. "Are you insane? That's exactly where they'll be." "It's also where the proof is." I grabbed the briefcase. "This was never about running. It's about fighting back." 20 minutes later, We pulled up a block from Thomas's law firm. The building was mostly dark, just security lights and a few scattered offices still illuminated, including the corner office on the 14th floor, Thomas's. "This is suicide," Mohammed muttered as we approached the service entrance. "They could be waiting for us. Then go. I'll do this alone." He caught my arm. "That's not what I meant. I'm with you, Isla. I just want you to understand the risk." The security guard recognized me from my many visits during my engagement. "Ms. Barnes, didn't expect to see you here this late." "Forgot something in Thomas's office," I said, forcing a smile. "Wedding planning binder. Awkward, I know, but I need it for the vendor cancellations." He nodded sympathetically. "Go on up. Mr. Jensen's still here." The elevator ride was excruciating, each floor bringing us closer to confrontation. Mohammed squeezed my hand. "Whatever happens, follow my lead if things go south." Thomas's office door was ajar, light spilling into the darkened hallway. I could hear papers rustling, drawers opening and closing. Taking a deep breath, I pushed the door open. Thomas stood by the shredder, feeding documents into its hungry mouth. He looked up, freezing when he saw me. "Isla." His eyes darted to Mohammed, then to the briefcase in my hand. "What are you doing here?" "Looking for the truth." I stepped into the office. "And the drive." His face paled. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do. Your insurance policy." "Where is it?" A tense silence stretched between us. Then, unexpectedly, Thomas laughed, a hollow, defeated sound. "You know what's funny? I was going to send it to you. Anonymous package, no return address." He sank into his chair. "Guess I'm not as heartless as you think." "Where is it, Thomas?" He reached for his watch, twisting the face to reveal a tiny compartment. Inside was a micro SD card no bigger than my fingernail. "Everything's here. Dates, amounts, names." He held it out, including Martin's clients. Very powerful, very dangerous people. As my fingers closed around the card, the office door slammed shut behind us. Martin stood there, a gun held casually at his side. "I'm disappointed, Thomas," he said softly. "I thought you were smarter than this." Thunderous applause erupted in my mind as I realized this moment, this confrontation, was exactly what I'd been moving toward all along. Not revenge, justice. "They never expected the real storm," I said, meeting Martin's cold gaze. And neither did I. Time slowed as Martin raised the gun. Mohammed stepped in front of me, but I gently moved him aside. This was my confrontation to face. "You won't shoot us," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Not here in Thomas's office, where the evidence would be impossible to explain away." Martin's smile was cold. "You've watched too many movies, Ms. Barnes. People disappear all the time." "True," I conceded, "but most people don't take precautions before meeting with criminals." I pulled out my phone, showing him the live broadcast icon. "I've been streaming this entire conversation to a private server. If anything happens to us, it goes public automatically." His eyes narrowed, assessing whether I was bluffing. I wasn't. Jasmine had set it up after I texted her from the car, a simple app that would release everything if I didn't enter a code every hour. Additionally, I continued, copies of everything on this drive have already been sent to 3 separate attorneys with instructions to release them if any of us go missing. This part was a lie, but Martin couldn't know that. Thomas stared at me with something like admiration. "You've thought of everything." "I learned from the best," I replied without looking at him. "Betrayal makes for an excellent teacher." Martin lowered the gun slightly. "What do you want?" "For starters, you're going to call off your men who are looking for me and my sister." "Your sister," Martin repeated, his expression shifting. "Interesting that you'd include her in your protection." "Family is complicated," I said simply. Mohammed moved toward the door, positioning himself to block any escape attempt. "The police will be here in about 10 minutes. Anonymous tip about suspicious activity." Martin's composure cracked slightly. "You're bluffing." "Maybe," Mohammed shrugged. Want to wait and find out? The standoff stretched, tension crackling between us. I could almost see Martin calculating his options, weighing risks against rewards. Even if you expose us, he said finally, you'll never be safe. The people I work for don't forgive. I'm willing to take that chance. I set the briefcase on Thomas's desk, unlatched it. Stacks of cash lay inside, exactly as promised. I'm keeping this, by the way. Consider it compensation for emotional damages. Thomas made a strangled sound. That's $500,000. Yes, I agreed. A small fraction of what you stole, I imagine. A siren wailed in the distance, growing louder. Martin's face hardened. This isn't over, he warned, backing toward the door. Actually, it is. I held up the micro SD card. Everything ends tonight. Mohammed blocked his path. You're not going anywhere. What happened next unfolded in seconds. Martin lunged, Mohammed deflected, and the gun clattered to the floor. They grappled, crashing into a bookshelf. I dove for the weapon, my fingers closing around cold metal, just as Thomas reached for it. Our eyes met over the gun. Don't, I warned. Something shifted in his expression, resignation perhaps, or the final death of whatever we'd once been to each other. I did love you, he said quietly. That part wasn't a lie. It doesn't matter anymore. The siren stopped outside the building. Footsteps pounded in the hallway. Not police, but security responding to the noise. It's over, Thomas, I said. All of it. He nodded slowly, stepping back with his hands raised. I know. The security guard burst in, taking in the scene with wide eyes. Martin pinned against the wall by Mohammed. Thomas standing with his hands up, me holding a gun. Ms. Barnes, he stammered. What's happening? I carefully set the gun down. These men are involved in a money laundering operation. The police are on their way. Don't let anyone leave. More sirens approached. This time it really was the police. In the chaos that followed, statements, evidence collection, arrests, I found myself sitting alone in the conference room, watching the sunrise through floor-to-ceiling windows. The adrenaline had worn off, leaving me hollow and exhausted. The door opened. Kimberly stood there, her face pale but resolute. They found me at Thomas's apartment, she explained. I've been giving a statement for hours. I nodded, too drained for anger. Did you tell them everything? Yes. She hesitated, then sat across from me. I'm probably going to jail, Isla. Probably. Silence stretched between us, 2 decades of sisterhood and one terrible betrayal hanging in the balance. I don't expect you to forgive me, she said finally. I wouldn't, in your position. I don't know if I can, I admitted, but I don't want to hate you anymore. It's exhausting. She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. For what it's worth, I hate myself enough for both of us. A detective appeared in the doorway. Ms. Barnes, we're ready for you now. I stood, gathering the last of my strength. Which one of us? Both, actually, separately. Kimberly rose too, wiping her tears. Isla, before we go in, thank you for the warning, for trying to protect me despite everything. I looked at my sister, really looked at her, for the first time since the betrayal. Behind the makeup and perfect hair had always been a girl desperate for validation, willing to sacrifice anything for approval, including me. We'll talk, I said, after all this is over. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a door left slightly ajar. In the hallway, Mohammed waited with 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to me, his fingers brushing mine. You were incredible in there, he said quietly. I had good backup. His smile was warm, genuine. What happens now? I took a sip of coffee, considering the question. The future stretched before me, unwritten and uncertain. The revenge I'd sought had transformed into something else entirely. Not just justice for myself, but for others who might have been harmed. Now? I watched as Thomas was led away in handcuffs, our eyes meeting briefly across the room. No anger remained, just a quiet certainty that I had survived the worst betrayal and emerged stronger. Now I rebuild, but on my terms this time. Mohammed nodded, understanding in his eyes. One day at a time. One truth at a time, I corrected, feeling the first fragile tendrils of peace taking root where bitterness had reigned. The storm had passed, leaving clarity in its wake. Perhaps the strongest justice, after all, was healing.
After their dismissive words, "Go ahead and get welfare, you poor thing," they left the house. In that moment, all my strength seemed to vanish, and I slumped to the floor, overwhelmed by exhaustion. Memories of Matthew's earlier words echoed painfully in my mind. "While you are indeed independent, my pride as a man has been injured. From now on, I intend to start a family with Freya, not just as my sister-in-law, but as my partner. So please, let's proceed with the divorce." I felt a numb indifference wash over me, prompting me to sign the divorce papers without hesitation, signaling my agreement to part ways. In time, I gathered the strength to challenge them on the division of our shared properties, resulting in a meeting with a lawyer. Unexpectedly, my sister, who wasn't even part of our marital equation, demanded a portion of our assets. The lawyer, unable to contain his amusement, burst out laughing. "Aren't you on welfare?" Caught off guard, my sister's face twisted into a confused expression, and she let out a shrill, incredulous scream. The documents the lawyer presented left her visibly pale. "My name is Sophia. My husband, Matthew, and I had been together for 20 years, and I am now 41 years old, while Matthew is a bit younger at 39. We share a daughter, Millie, who is 16 and navigating the critical time of her high school exams. Matthew and I met while I was working at a real estate appraiser, he at a company linked to mine. Our friendship began over minor things, and soon we were close outside of work as well. Matthew's sensitive nature and hesitancy in decision-making initially endeared him to me, leading me to take care of him, somewhat like I did with my much younger brother. Over time, my feelings grew deeper as I came to appreciate his more decisive moments, especially when he took the initiative to propose. We had Millie without facing significant conflicts and envisioned starting a new chapter together once she was older. That changed abruptly when my sister Freya arrived unexpectedly with a suitcase in tow. Unlike my brother, with whom I share a significant age gap and a good relationship, Freya and I have always been at odds. Our tumultuous relationship began in childhood, with her taking my things and escalated to her usurping my social circles, and even my first boyfriend during high school. My disdain for her was so intense that I chose a different university to escape her shadow, which did little to deter her meddling. Despite distancing myself, obtaining a real estate license, and moving to New York, my life remained intermittently disrupted by Freya's intrusions. Even my wedding to Matthew was a quiet affair, hidden from public knowledge to avoid my sister's interference. Yet, even in the sanctuary of my own home, she found a way to intrude. "Wow, Sophie, you live in such a nice house. Is it a single-family home? Did you buy it?" "Oh, there's a room available. I'll take this one," Freya announced, ignoring my protests and continuing to survey the house as if it were her own. Her timing was impeccably poor. It was a holiday. Millie was away at classes, and Matthew was at work. I pleaded with her to leave before their return, but she paid no heed, setting the stage for an awkward and unwelcome reunion later that day. I'm Sophie's sister, Freya. Imagine my surprise when, during a visit to our parents' home, I stumbled upon wedding photos in Mom's room. I hadn't heard a peep about your marriage, which struck me as incredibly secretive. Even Matthew seemed perturbed when he met me, as if he recognized the sister Sophie had described. But I saw it Matthew was clearly charmed by my stunning sister, and Millie walked into a bewildering scene. Suddenly, they found themselves with an aunt they'd never met. as I explained my recent job loss and financial struggles and broached the subject of moving in temporarily. Reluctantly, you agreed, even though Millie was approaching a crucial exam year. Within a week of moving in, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. I needed money, and without a job, I resorted to borrowing from your wallet without asking, a move that led to tension. I should have communicated better about my needs. Meanwhile, Matthew's work hours suspiciously aligned with my schedule. And though he claimed he was earning overtime, the numbers didn't add up. When I confronted him, he defensively insisted he was compensated separately for it. As days passed, my presence seemed to strain your household finances and patience. Our parents apologized for their oversight, which led me to discover your marriage. Despite my intentions, I admit my approach might have been too invasive. I began to wonder if my circumstances, my firing, were even perceived as genuine, or if you thought I quit my job to impose on your lives. That suspicion hurt, but I needed to clarify my situation. I had always worked part-time and wasn't eligible for unemployment benefits. Returning to our parents was not an option. I didn't want to burden them in their senior years. 4 months later, my worst behaviors seemed validated when I discovered Matthew and I in a compromising, seemingly romantic moment, which shattered any trust remaining. This complex web of secrecy, misunderstanding, and betrayal has led us to a critical juncture in our family dynamics. After much contemplation and gathering my courage, I decided to confront them at home. So, the overtime was a lie, huh? And you pretending to job hunt while actually hanging out with Matthew? I accused, my voice thick with betrayal. Even now, you can't resist taking something from me, can you? That's why I never told you about my marriage. Emotions surged as I confronted them, and to my dismay, they nonchalantly confirmed the affair and added more salt to my wounds. If I had known such a beautiful woman was your sister, I wouldn't have stayed away just because you asked, Matthew confessed. Then, shockingly, he declared his intention to leave me for my sister. I need to be true to my feelings. I want to build a life with Freya, he said, sliding divorce papers across the table, already filled out on his part. Fine, if that's how it is, don't expect any financial support from me ever again, I retorted. Freya laughed mockingly and scornfully suggested I seek welfare. Matthew, half smiling, cruelly remarked that it would be better for our daughter to stay with me since custody usually favors the mother. With those words, they left the house. Minutes later, Millie came home, puzzled by the silence. I told her the truth, and after the initial shock, she seemed to find some peace in accepting the situation. The divorce proceedings began, and in the presence of my lawyer, we discussed financial matters. Freya, shamelessly Freya, demanded a division of our assets. The lawyer couldn't help but laugh, pointing out the absurdity of her demands given our financial state. Surprised by this turn of events, Freya's confidence wavered, and she looked utterly bewildered when the lawyer revealed that there wasn't much to divide. Matthew, too, was taken aback to learn that we hardly had any significant assets. Anticipating this confrontation, I had taken decisive steps right after discovering the affair. Most of our savings had been transferred to Millie's account for her education, a move Matthew had unknowingly consented to, thinking it was a minor financial adjustment. Now, realizing his mistake and remembering the consent he had given, Matthew's frustration grew. You knew about the affair and moved the savings to Millie, anticipating a split? He asked, scratching his head in panic and regret. Yes. Nearly all my savings are now in Millie's account, beyond our reach for division, I explained calmly. As the reality dawned on Matthew and Freya that there was little left to claim, their faces fell. Freya, still trying to grasp the situation, lamented to Matthew about the lost promise of a lavish lifestyle they had envisioned together. Meanwhile, Matthew, overwhelmed by the realization that his minimal income and student loans left him with little, avoided Freya's accusatory gaze. In the end, the division of what was left, barely $203,000, was a far cry from the luxurious life Freya had imagined. Her dreams of easy wealth crumbling, she stared in disbelief, realizing too late that her schemes had backfired spectacularly. From the start of our marriage, Matthew had been open about his difficulty contributing to our daily living expenses. I agreed to manage these costs myself and asked him to save whatever he could for our future, especially as we grew older. For over a decade, I covered all our household expenses under the assumption that Matthew was diligently saving. I believed he would accumulate a significant amount, at least $2,000 annually, given the financial relief I provided. However, when I accidentally discovered his bank book left carelessly on the desk, I was shocked to see that his savings were less than $10,000. I had expected much more considering he was exempt from daily expenses. The realization that he had been squandering money instead felt like a betrayal. Now, as we navigated through our divorce, the reality of our financial situation became starkly apparent to Freya. Knowing that only $134,000 was available for division, she seemed utterly lost. It was then I decided to confront Matthew with a suspicion that had been nagging at me. "Matthew, are you planning to quit your job?" His reaction was immediate and nervous, confirming my suspicion without him needing to say a word. My guess was based on the unusual amount of paid leave he had taken recently, something out of character for him and suggestive of an impending resignation. This suspicion was intertwined with their affair, leading me to believe Matthew might think he'd secure a large sum from the divorce to start anew. "You should have at least understood the nature of my job and the extent of my assets before making such decisions," I said, watching his face flush with the realization of his miscalculation. In the middle of this, Freya, spurred by desperation, accused me of hiding assets. "If you can handle all these expenses alone, you must be hiding something. You own real estate, we should be dividing that too," she exclaimed, thinking she had caught me in a deceit. Listening to their misguided assumptions, I was astonished at their lack of understanding. The lawyer, unable to suppress a chuckle at their ignorance, clarified, "Matthew, as Sophie's former husband, you should realize that any real estate owned through her company doesn't count as personal, but as corporate assets, which cannot be included in the marital asset." The lawyer further explained the potential legal ramifications of their admitted affair, suggesting that Freya and Matthew could owe compensation for their actions, $15,000 from Matthew and $3,000 from Freya. Their protest over the amount, arguing the affair was brief and shouldn't warrant such penalties, only highlighted their lack of grasp on the situation. In that moment, as they faced the legal and financial consequences of their choices, the reality of their precarious position dawned on them. The lawyer's stern reminder of the seriousness of their actions and the separate nature of corporate assets left them red-faced and speechless. The discussion ended with a clear delineation of what could be divided and the potential costs they might incur, a sobering conclusion to their fleeting fantasy. When they heard the potential compensation figures reaching up to $15,000, Matthew and Freya seemed taken aback by the severity of the situation, hastily making excuses for their actions. However, I immediately challenged them. The market value is just a guideline. Matthew, you chose to take leave to secretly date my sister, and Freya, you opted not to job hunt sincerely, living off my finances instead. The lawyer has objectively assessed the situation and determined this amount. Would you prefer it to be higher?" They quickly shook their heads, dismissing the idea. The discussions were too complex to conclude in one day, so they were adjourned. 1 week later, we reconvened. Freya, adopting a defiant tone, proposed, "Give me the house and the regular car. Then give Matthew's $134,000 to him. and I'll pay the remaining $2,000. Her demands were almost laughable, pushing the limits of reason. I managed to keep my composure and responded. The house still carries a mortgage and requires regular maintenance, holding some value if sold. The car, purchased just 3 years ago, is relatively new. Accepting your proposal would mean a significant loss for me, which I am not willing to entertain. Did you even consider the financial implications of your demands? Matthew, trying to steer the conversation, interjected, "You own assets worth $310 million in the company, right? I don't care about your real estate ventures, but keeping all that wealth to yourself is just selfish." Caught off guard by their audacity, I couldn't help but burst into laughter at the absurdity of their claims. After regaining my composure, I looked at them sternly. "Is that all you have to say? Why do you act like victims here? I'd rather be cautious with my finances than give anything to a man who abandons his daughter for an affair, or to a sister who attempts to steal her sibling's husband. My priority is to secure as much as possible for Millie." I continued, dismantling their misunderstandings. "Matthew, this house is under my name, purchased with a mortgage before our marriage. It's my separate property, and no matter how you twist it, it remains mine. The car, still new and in demand, will only be sold if you pay half its appraised value. That's how property division works. We own 2 cars the other. A used compact car probably won't fetch much." The lawyer mentioned houses and cars as generally subject to property division, not that they would necessarily be divided between us. "We're only dividing the $203,000 from your secret savings and my savings. Plus the 2 cars, that's it." Frustrated by their lack of understanding, Matthew pleaded, "Can you just give us enough to start a new life?" His request sounded more like a superficial apology than a genuine plea for help. I remained steadfast. "Given your actions and attitude, it seems you wouldn't even consider supporting Millie financially. Why should I be concerned about your living expenses?" My firm stance left them no choice but to sign the necessary documents for the divorce and property division. Some time later, Freya called me repeatedly, complaining, "Why did Matthew have so much debt? You were supposed to be handling the finances." These calls only confirmed the ongoing chaos in their lives, affirming that my decisions throughout this ordeal. My name is Alea. I'm a 27-year-old office manager and have been dating Aiden, who's 3 years my senior, for some time now. We met through a friend who was concerned about me remaining single. Initially, I wasn't sure about starting a relationship. Having lost my mom at a young age, I was raised by my dedicated father, who ensured a comfortable life for me despite our loss. Because of this, I've always been cautious with my emotions, almost content with the idea of staying single forever. But then Aiden came into my life. Despite my initial hesitations, his persistent kindness and respect gradually won me over. After a year of dating, Aiden proposed, and I realized he had become very special to me. I couldn't imagine my life without him. He's always understood me and reassured me that he'd be there whenever I needed him. His support and love convinced me that I wanted to spend my life with him. When I told my father about our engagement, he was overjoyed. His reaction was so emotional that he even shed tears of happiness. We shared a lighthearted moment when I teased him about being dramatic, and he confessed his worries about me possibly never marrying. However, the wedding reception took an unexpected turn when my in-laws, under the influence, made a scene. They loudly declared that I needed to prove my worth by contributing financially to the family to the tune of $2,500 a month. Shocked and embarrassed by their outburst, I could only stand there, pale-faced. Thankfully, my father intervened, taking the microphone to sternly remind them of their inappropriate behavior. In that chaotic moment, I realized the challenges of marrying into a new family, but also saw the unwavering support I had from my own father reinforcing my belief that love and respect should define family ties, not monetary demands. "It means a lot to have your blessing, Dad," I said, unable to hide my joy. He smiled back at me, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Every father worries about his daughter, but seeing you so happy gives me peace," he replied. Then added, "Congratulations, my dear." Thanking him, I thought about how my father had raised me on his own. It made this moment even more special, knowing how emotional our wedding day would be for both of us. We were already feeling emotional, and it was only the beginning. As Aiden and I dove into the whirlwind of wedding preparations, our days became a blur of activity. Balancing our demanding jobs with wedding planning was exhausting. Our weekends were packed, and our weekdays were no less hectic. Whenever we managed to snatch a day off, we tried to advance our wedding plans or visit family, which was equally important. The day we were scheduled to visit Aiden's parents for the first time, nerves suddenly hit me. Aiden noticed and quickly reassured me, "Don't worry. My parents are really welcoming." Feeling slightly better, I rang their doorbell and Aiden's mother opened the door. "Mom, I'm home," Aiden announced cheerfully. "Welcome home, Aiden. And it's wonderful you brought your fiancé, eh?" His mother replied with a warm smile that disappeared as she turned to me. I introduced myself politely. "Nice to meet you. My name is Alea, and I'm engaged to Aiden." "So, you're Alea," she noted, her tone cooling considerably as she scrutinized me from head to toe. Her initially warm demeanor shifted as she led us to the living room, where her attitude remained frosty. "Alea, I'm curious about what you bring to the table. Aiden is our treasure, our only child. If you're going to marry him, you need to be a suitable wife. Are you worthy of him?" she asked, her tone more like an interrogation than a question. I was taken aback by her harsh words and struggled to find my voice. "You're going to join our family, you know. Are you ready for that?" she pressed on. Her probing made me feel like I was being asked to join some illustrious dynasty, which was far from the case. I didn't appreciate being pressured this way, and as she grew impatient with my hesitation, she scolded, "When I ask you a question, answer right away. You're being rude." Despite feeling overwhelmed, I found my resolve. "I hope that Aiden and I will support each other and grow together. That's what truly matters in a marriage, not just meeting certain expectations," I managed to say, hoping to bridge the gap her scrutiny had created. Gathering my composure, I responded in our marriage. Supporting each other is essential. However, Aiden's mother was clearly unimpressed. "That's a naive thing to say. It's not just about mutual support. As his wife, it's your duty to support Aiden," she retorted, implying that I lacked even the basic understanding of marital roles. At that moment, Aiden's father, who had been silently observing the exchange, tried to intervene. "Honey, please calm down," he said soothingly to his wife, then turned to me apologetically. I tried to convey my discomfort. "I get that your parents are concerned about their son's marriage, but the way they expressed it was too much." "Why is that?" "My parents didn't say anything wrong. Besides, they've given us their blessing, so don't worry about it," he reassured, missing the point of my unease. His dismissal troubled me deeply. It seemed Aiden was more aligned with his parents than with me, a realization that stung. Perhaps sensing my hesitation, Aiden gave me a comforting hug. "Alea, you don't have to worry so much. My parents are just a bit upset because their only son is getting married," he explained, his tone not entirely supportive. "It's all going to be fine. Don't overthink it. They just want what's best for us. They want us to be as good a couple as they are," he added, trying to justify their harshness. "Really?" I replied skeptically. While Aiden seemed to believe his parents had high expectations for us, I couldn't shake the feeling that their harsh words were unjust, especially the comments about my upbringing by a single father. "I don't think people who say such things make a good couple," I countered. "We are the ones getting married, and we should be the focus, not their approval or disapproval." With that perspective in mind, although still upset, I resolved not to dwell too much on his parents' opinions. Then the wedding day arrived. It was a bustling affair with many guests, including relatives, friends, colleagues, and bosses. Walking down the aisle with my father, who had raised me all my life, was a profoundly emotional moment. Aiden and I exchanged our vows and rings, greeted by applause from our guests. As we entered the reception hall, a feeling of genuine happiness washed over me, a happiness like I had never felt before. We made our way through the crowd, greeted by videos of our journey together playing in the background. It was a moment of joyous celebration, marking the start of our new life together. It was a jubilant occasion, filled with laughter and conversation as I reconnected with old friends and received numerous congratulations. Despite my previous apprehensions about Aiden's parents, I was thrilled that we had chosen to make this day memorable. The ceremony left us elated, and Frank and I looked forward to officially registering our marriage, marking the start of our life as husband and wife. I savored every moment, my heart swelling with happiness. However, as the reception progressed and we approached the final segment of the evening, my sense of unease returned. The bride, groom, and both sets of parents were supposed to line up to greet the guests. It became apparent that Frank's parents were struggling to stand steady. Observant guests could notice their flushed faces, a clear sign they had indulged too much in the celebratory drinks. Some relatives even inquired if they were all right. Though visibly intoxicated, we had to proceed with wrapping up the ceremony. Just as the moderator handed me the microphone to share a few words, Aiden's mother unexpectedly yanked my hand away from his and shouted, her voice booming like a wrestler in the midst of a match. "Listen to me, Alea! After this wedding, you are to devote yourself completely to us. Prepare yourself because we are going to test you rigorously." The guests murmured among themselves, some chuckling, thinking it was all in jest. Then, Aiden's father took the microphone from me, his words cutting deeper. "Alea, don't you feel embarrassed wearing a dress like that?" "It doesn't suit you at all, dear." His mother quickly joined in, urging him to tell the truth. The whispers among the guests grew more pronounced, the atmosphere shifting palpably. I looked towards Aiden, hoping he would intervene and put a stop to his father's hurtful remarks. But Aiden remained passive, insisting that his parents weren't out of line. It was a stark revelation that he might never shield me from their harshness. As the murmurs filled the hall, the implications of what marrying into this family meant became painfully clear. My in-laws, still reeling from their excess, continued with their insults. "Well, you're already married, but if you want to be part of this family, you need to prove you have enough money," they declared. "That's right," they pressed on, even suggesting that after we registered our marriage at the city hall, I should hand over a significant sum of money to them. The shock of their audacity left me reeling amidst the chaos of the celebration. It was a moment of harsh realization about the future dynamics I was stepping into. At our wedding reception, when Aiden's parents demanded a month of my salary and my entire bonus, I was utterly shocked. I couldn't believe they would say such things on such a supposed joyous occasion. I stood there, stunned, my face draining of color. At that critical moment, my father stepped in, taking the microphone from them. "Enough of this," he declared firmly, yet respectfully. "Don't you realize you're making fools of yourselves?" he chided. Aiden's parents turned their glare towards my father. "Why are you interrupting us while we're speaking?" they retorted aggressively. They continued to demean his status. I knew this woman's father was no good. Single parents are never any good. Hearing them insult my father like that infuriated me, but my father maintained his composure. "You people are even worse than I imagined," he responded calmly. "You even refuse to meet me just because I am a single father." My father then surprised everyone, especially Aiden's parents. "I assumed that, working for President Scott, you would be more decent," he continued, as the room hushed in anticipation of his next words. "How do you know President Scott?" Aiden's father's voice betrayed a sudden seriousness. "He's a business partner of my company and, more importantly, an old friend of mine," my father explained. And speaking of single parents, President Scott was also raised by his mother alone. "So, essentially, you just insulted the president of the company you work for." The color drained from my in-laws' faces as they realized the gravity of their mistake. My father-in-law, now pale and shaken, fell to his knees. "I apologize, sir. Please don't tell the president about this," he pleaded. His earlier arrogance vanished completely. The guests began to murmur, some even chuckling at the sudden turn of events, with a few pulling out their phones to capture the moment. My father looked at them sternly. "No matter how much you apologize, you can't take back your words," he stated. He then walked over to me, his presence reassuring. "Do you want to go home with me?" he asked softly. I nodded, my decision firm. Taking the microphone from Aiden, I addressed everyone. "Thank you for the entertainment, but there will be no marriage." I then turned to Aiden and his parents. "I will make sure to return the money you gave us for this occasion." With that, I left the reception hall alongside my father, feeling a mix of relief and disappointment, but knowing that standing up for my dignity was the right choice. As I walked away from the chaotic scene of the reception with my father, I could see Aiden and his parents, their faces etched with dismay. Behind them, a flurry of worried expressions from his relatives filled the room. Despite the upheaval, I paused to return their gifts and money, apologizing to the guests for the disruption. Many expressed their sympathy towards me and admiration for the courage my father and I displayed in standing up to such blatant disrespect. Word of the incident spread quickly, thanks to Aiden's coworkers who had attended the wedding. Soon, Aiden found himself the subject of office gossip, criticized not just for his parents' behavior, but also for his lack of response during the ordeal. His reputation took such a hit that he felt compelled to resign from his job. Meanwhile, the president of the company where my father-in-law worked was informed about the debacle. As a result, Aiden's father was demoted and reassigned to a less significant division, relocated to a remote office in the countryside. The family faced social ostracization from their relatives, a direct consequence of their actions at the wedding. In the aftermath, I turned this challenging time into an opportunity to strengthen my bond with my father. We spent more quality time together, which deepened my appreciation for all he had done for me. One day, during a serious conversation, he posed a significant question. "Alea, are you interested in running the business?" he asked, his eyes reflecting a mixture of hope and seriousness. A bit unsure where he was heading with this, I responded. "Do you mean, why don't you work towards becoming the president of my company?" he suggested. It was a big step, but he seemed to believe I was ready to take it on. "I'll do my best," I promised him, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. Deciding to focus on my professional growth rather than diving back into romantic relationships, I committed myself to excel at my father's company. The work was challenging but fulfilling, and I was determined to make the most of this new path. Reflecting on the wedding fiasco, it was clear that Aiden's in-laws were quite unreasonable, turning what should have been a beautiful event into a regrettable spectacle. Thankfully, since the marriage wasn't officially registered, I was spared from a legally binding mistake. Now free from any marital ties and with no looming in-law issues, I could focus solely on my career aspirations. It's a relief to know that out of a chaotic situation came a clear path forward for me. I look forward to what the future holds and am excited about the opportunities to grow and lead, just like my father. This ordeal underscored the importance of standing up for oneself and confirmed that, sometimes, a difficult choice leads to a brighter future.
My name is Ruby. Life shifted unexpectedly after 7 years of a seemingly ordinary marriage to Miles. Initially, everything seemed usual. I was college teacher, Miles was managing at an solar company, and our lives were uneventful. Then, Miles's father died, leaving his mother, Allison, by herself in the family home. That's when everything changed. One evening, Miles approached me with a grave expression that made me pause my phone scrolling. "Ruby, we need to talk," he said, and I could sense the seriousness in his voice. I looked up, concerned. "What's wrong? Is everything okay?" He sighed deeply before replying, "It's about Mom. She's alone in that big old house since Dad passed away. I think it's best if we move in with her." My heart sank. Living with Allison was not an appealing thought, as we had never gotten along well. "Move in with Allison?" I asked incredulously. "Miles, you know very well that Allison and I don't see eye to eye." He leaned back against the kitchen counter, his gaze resolute. "I know, but she's my mom and she's having a hard time. Plus, we are wasting money on rent here." I ran my fingers through my hair, feeling the weight of the decision. "But this apartment is our space, our sanctuary. Moving in with your mom, it changes everything." Miles' voice softened, his plea evident. "Please, Ruby. It's not just about the space. It's about family. Mom needs us." I bit my lip, feeling trapped. "Does your mom need us? Or do you feel obligated to be there for her?" His brow furrowed. "That's not fair, Ruby. We wouldn't be living in squalor. It's a spacious house with enough room for all of us." As I crossed my arms, the tension escalated. "And what about our lives here? Are we supposed to just drop everything because Allison needs us?" Miles's voice grew firm. "It's not like that, and you know it. I'm thinking of what's best for everyone." I countered, increasingly frustrated, for everyone, or just for Allison. He threw up his hands in exasperation. "Damn it, Ruby, can't you see the bigger picture?" I glared back, steadfast. "I am looking at the bigger picture, Miles, our life, our independence, not just settling into that dreary old house because it's convenient." Our argument spun in circles, but eventually, I reluctantly agreed, for Miles, for peace. Yet, I dreaded the move deeply. When moving day arrived, it was as awkward as I feared. Allison's house was a looming, chilly structure. She welcomed us with a cold smile. "Welcome. I expect you to respect my ways." Living with Allison proved challenging. She critiqued everything relentlessly. One night, after a sharp comment on my cooking, I vented to Miles, "I can't seem to do anything right for your mother. It's like living under constant scrutiny." The transition was difficult, reshaping not just our living situation, but also the dynamics of our relationships, testing the bonds of family and patience. In the suffocating atmosphere of Allison's house, each day felt more oppressive than the last. Miles, ever the drill sergeant, seemed as frustrated as I was. "Just give it time," he insisted, rubbing his temples. "She's old and set in her ways." I threw my hands up in exasperation. "Great, so we tiptoe around her indefinitely." He had no response, and honestly, neither did I. Living under Allison's critical gaze felt like constant surveillance. Just when I thought I might be adapting to the daily grind, Miles confronted me with yet another staggering demand. It was a lazy Sunday afternoon, and I was seeking solace in the garden when he approached, leaning on the gate. "Ruby, we need to talk," he said, his voice heavy with seriousness. A knot formed in my stomach. "What is it now, Miles?" He took a deep breath, preparing himself. "I think you should quit your job and stay home. We're spending too much on a nurse and housekeeper for Mom." It just makes more sense financially. I stood up, my anger flaring. Quit my job. Miles, I love teaching. It's not just about the money. He ran his fingers through his hair, his tone becoming edgy. I know, but think about it, it'll make things easier around here. I shook my head in disbelief. So what? I just become a full-time maid and nurse. That's not the life I want. Miles's voice rose, strained with frustration. It's not about what we want, Ruby. It's about what's practical. My mom needs us. I glared back at him fiercely. No, your mom needs you. I didn't sign up to be her caretaker. He shot back defensively. Well, things change, Ruby. We need to adapt. Adapt? That word felt like a slap. I loved my job, my independence. This wasn't adapting, this was sacrificing. Resigned, I finally said, you know what, Miles? Fine, I'll do it. But don't expect me to be happy about it. He sighed, relief crossing his face, though it was clear neither of us felt victorious. Thank you, Ruby. It means a lot. But it didn't feel like a victory at all, it felt like I was losing a part of myself. Quitting my job was difficult, but the days that followed were even more challenging. I became a full-time housekeeper, nurse, and cook. Allison, as always, had her criticisms ready. Those curtains need washing, she would say, or, the soup is too salty. It was relentless. One day, I reached my breaking point. Allison was critiquing how I ironed her clothes, and I couldn't take it anymore. Allison, can you just stop? I'm doing my best here, I exclaimed, my voice shaking with frustration. She looked taken aback. Well, I'm sorry if I have standards, Ruby. I threw the iron down, unable to contain my anger. I'm not your servant, Allison. I'm your son's wife. I'm here trying to help, and all you do is criticize me. There was a moment of tense silence. Then, Allison's expression softened slightly. I know you're trying, Ruby. I'm just used to things a certain way. Exhaling deeply, I felt a weight lift slightly, though the tension never fully dissipated. I understand, Allison, but I'm not you. I have my own way of doing things. From that point, there was a subtle shift. Allison reduced her criticisms, and I made an effort to adjust to her quirks. It was a delicate truce, but it was certainly an improvement over the constant friction. As time progressed in Allison's house, the air grew thick with tension, almost stifling. Miles's behavior became increasingly distant and elusive. He often returned from work late, and even when present, he might as well have been a ghost, sequestered in the spare room as if it were his sanctuary. One evening, unable to tolerate the silence and distance any longer, I confronted him in the kitchen. Miles, what's going on with you? You're hardly here, and even when you are, it's like you're not really my husband anymore. He avoided eye contact, stirring his coffee absent-mindedly. Work's a nightmare right now, Ruby. Just piles of stress. I leaned against the counter, arms folded. I get stress, Miles, but this feels like you're shutting me out. You're here, but you're not really here. He sighed deeply, his eyes still fixed on his coffee. I don't know what to say, Ruby. I'm just really tied up with stuff. I wanted to believe him, to understand, but a voice inside me whispered that there was more he wasn't sharing. Then there was Lucy, Miles' sister, who seemed determined to heighten the tension. Each of her visits was a challenge. She'd survey the house with disdain, sneering, still stuck in this old dump, huh? Usually, I held my tongue, but one day her provocation struck a nerve. Not all of us have the luxury to mooch off others, Lucy, I retorted sharply. She just laughed, her voice grating on my nerves. Oh, look at you, playing the martyr in a haunted house. Pathetic. Miles, ever the silent bystander, offered no defense. His silence felt like another blow, a silent acknowledgement of the widening rift between us. However, the most significant change occurred with Allison. One day, she called out for Lucy in a frail, desperate voice, "Lucy, I need help with a bath. I can't manage on my own anymore." Lucy's response was cold and dismissive. "Help yourself, Mom. I'm not your caretaker." Allison broke down in tears, and despite our rocky history, I couldn't stand to see her in distress. I helped her with the bath, and from that day, something shifted between us. Allison began to treat me less like an intruder and more like a daughter. This newfound warmth was a welcome change, yet it also underscored how much Miles and I had drifted apart. The house felt colder, emptier, despite Allison's warming attitude towards me. The walls seemed to echo with the growing distance between Miles and me, a reminder of the emotional void expanding within what was supposed to be our home. The silence between Miles and me deepened into a chasm that seemed to widen with each passing day. The atmosphere at home turned chillier, and Miles's late nights at work became the norm. Our interactions dwindled to whispers of what they once were. During one of these brief exchanges, Miles casually dropped a bombshell that added to our pile of secrets. "Ruby, I got an apartment near work," he mentioned offhandedly, as if discussing something as mundane as the weather. I nearly dropped the dish I was washing. "An apartment? Why on earth would you need that?" He leaned against the door frame, avoiding eye contact. "It's just practical, Ruby. It saves me the commute, especially with these late nights." A surge of anger and confusion washed over me. "And you just decided this without talking to me? What are we, roommates now?" His shrug, his indifference, it cut deep. "I thought you'd be happy. Less stress about me coming home late." I shook my head, disbelief tinting my voice. "Happy, Miles? This feels like you're living a double life. What's next? You'll tell me you have a second family there?" He sighed, rubbing his forehead. "Don't be dramatic, Ruby. It's not like that." I wanted to delve deeper, to shatter his nonchalant facade, but it felt futile. Our conversation ended there, as many of our conversations did these days. The real shock came a few days later during a candid conversation with Allison. We were in the living room, sharing a rare moment of peace, when she suddenly remarked, "You know, Miles didn't buy that apartment with his own money." I looked at her, puzzled. "What do you mean?" She hesitated, then continued, "He used my savings. He said it was an investment, even put it in my name." My heart sank. "He's been using your money, and you're okay with this?" Allison shrugged, a sad look in her eyes. I couldn't say no. "He's my son, but I thought you should know." Miles's secret apartment was one thing, but using his mother's savings under the guise of an investment was another. It felt like the man I had married was slipping away, replaced by a stranger filled with secrets and lies. A few days later, I confronted Miles about it. "Miles, why didn't you tell me the apartment was bought with your mom's money?" His response was unapologetic, almost defiant. "Because I knew you'd react like this. It's an investment, Ruby. It's not a big deal." I couldn't believe his audacity. "Not a big deal? You're gambling with your mom's savings and keeping it from me. What else are you hiding?" He turned away, ending the conversation with a dismissive wave. "You wouldn't understand, Ruby. It's business." Business, that word felt like a chasm between us, an excuse for everything that was going wrong in our marriage. Living in Allison's old, dreary house was taking its toll. The walls, once probably vibrant, now echoed a somber tone, and every creaking floorboard seemed to whisper secrets. One day, I couldn't take it anymore. Over breakfast, I broached a new topic with Allison. "Have you ever thought about renovating the house? It could use some freshening up." Allison looked up from her tea, surprised. "Renovate? I haven't thought about it in years. It's such a big task." I nodded, my enthusiasm reignited. "I know, but it could really liven up the place. Maybe we could start with a fresh coat of paint or some new wallpaper." Allison paused, considering the suggestion. Well, I suppose it wouldn't hurt to bring some new life into this old house. But are you sure you're up for it? With a smile brimming with eagerness for a new project, I replied, absolutely. It'll be a positive change. And so, the renovation began. I dedicated myself to the task, painting walls, selecting wallpaper, and even restoring some of the old furniture. It was challenging work, but it was invigorating, as if I was infusing life back into the house and, in a way, into myself too. One day, while I was elbow-deep in paint, Miles walked in. His eyes widened in shock and disbelief as he surveyed the changes. "What the hell, Ruby? What are you doing to my mom's house?" I stood up, wiping sweat from my brow. "I'm renovating, Miles. Like I told Allison, it's time this place received a little love and care." Miles's face reddened with anger. "You had no right to start changing things without asking me. This is my family home, not some DIY project." Feeling my temper rise, I retorted, "Your home. When was the last time you even showed you cared about this place, Miles? I'm doing something good here." He stepped closer, his voice rising. "You're overstepping, Ruby. You always do this, take control and push everyone else aside." I stared at him incredulously. "Take control? Miles, I'm trying to make this gloomy place livable. Maybe if you spent more time here, you'd appreciate that." Before Miles could respond, Allison entered the room. "What's all this noise about?" Miles turned to her, frustration evident. "Mom, did you know about this? About her changing the house?" Allison looked from me to Miles and back again. "Yes, I did. And I'm glad she's doing it. This house needed a change, and Ruby's doing a wonderful job." Miles looked as if he'd been slapped. "But it's our family home." Allison cut him off, her tone firm. "It's my home, Miles. And I want this. Ruby has every right to do what she's doing." Miles stormed out, leaving me and Allison in an awkward silence. I felt a mix of victory and sadness. The house was transforming, but the gap between Miles and me seemed to only grow wider. The day Allison suffered her stroke, our world turned upside down. I was there, witnessing her sudden decline, her words slurring, her body weakening. Panic gripped me as I called for help, my voice quivering with fear. At the hospital, the grim reality set in. Allison needed constant care. I looked to Miles for support, but he was distant, his eyes void of concern. "Ruby, I can't deal with this. I have enough on my plate," he said coldly. I was stunned. "You can't deal with this. Miles, she's your mother." He shrugged, his response cutting like a knife. "Yeah, and she's been a burden for years. This is just the cherry on top." I couldn't hide my disgust. "She's not a burden, Miles. She's family. She needs us." His laugh was bitter. "Us? No, Ruby. She needs you. I've got other things to handle." I was left speechless, my respect for him sinking. I took it upon myself to care for Allison. It was hard, watching the once strong woman who had become dependent, but I was determined to be there for her, even as Miles receded further into the background. As I assumed the role of Allison's primary caregiver, Miles's visits became increasingly scarce, and his indifference more pronounced. His conversations with Allison were brief and superficial, his presence fleeting. Then, during one such rare visit, Lucy arrived. I overheard them in the living room, their words dripping with venom. "We should start thinking about the will, dividing the assets," Lucy said, her tone emotionless. Fury surged through me as I burst into the room. "How can you be so heartless, discussing her will right in front of her? She's still here." Lucy smirked, her words sharp. "Oh, look who's talking, the saintly daughter-in-law. This is our family's matter. Stay out of it." Miles chimed in, his voice laced with cynicism. "Ruby, just drop it. It's practical to plan these things. No use pretending she's going to bounce back. I was aghast at his cruelty. Practical. She's your mother, Miles. How can you be so callous? He shrugged, his reply cold and detached. Life's callous, Ruby. Better get used to it. I turned away, my heart heavy with disgust. In the following weeks, I dedicated myself to Allison's recovery, and to my surprise, she showed signs of improvement. Her fingers twitched, her speech cleared, and she even managed a few steps. It felt like a miracle to me, but to Miles and Lucy, it was merely a nuisance, an inconvenience obstructing their path to inheritance. Their true colors were vividly clear now. Their mother's plight was nothing more than a hurdle in their pursuit of her assets. The betrayal stung deep, not just as a daughter-in-law, but as a human being. Life had settled into a grim routine, Allison's health a constant roller coaster, with small victories overshadowed by the looming fear of the worst. Then it happened, another stroke, this time more severe. The call from the hospital felt like a punch to the gut. Allison didn't make it. The funeral was a somber affair. I stood beside the grave, my heart heavy, watching as people paid their respects. That's when Miles arrived, and with him, a woman I didn't recognize, accompanied by 3 small children clinging to her hands. Who's she? I whispered to myself, my eyes fixed on the unfamiliar woman. Miles approached, his expression unreadable. Ruby, this is Carol, my wife, and these are our kids. I felt as if I had been slapped. Your wife? When did this happen? He shrugged, a coldness in his voice. A while ago. It's none of your business, Ruby. I was speechless, my mind reeling. How could he? And during all this time with Allison. Lucy was there too, her usual sneer in place. Finally showing your true colors, Ruby. Playing the grieving daughter-in-law. It's a bit late for that. I glared at her, my voice laced with contempt. I was here for Allison when you both abandoned her. Don't you dare judge me. Miles interjected, let's just get this over with. We have other matters to discuss. After the funeral ended and the gathering moved to Allison's house for the will reading, Miles and Lucy hovered like vultures, eagerly awaiting their share. The lawyer began reading the will, and that's when the bombshell dropped. The entire estate, house, money, everything, was left to me. Miles's smug expression morphed into one of utter shock. What the hell? This can't be right. Lucy was livid, her voice rising with indignation. She was our mother. How could she leave everything to this nobody? I stood there, stunned, the complex flood of emotions making it hard to discern whether I felt happy, vindicated, or simply hollow. Miles turned to me, his voice thick with accusation. You manipulated her, didn't you? Turned her against us. I shook my head, a mix of disbelief and anger sharpening my words. I did nothing but care for her, which is more than I can say for you. The lawyer stepped in, his tone professional yet firm. Allison was very clear in her will. Lucy seethed, this is not the end. We'll contest this. There's no way we are letting her get away with this. As they stormed out in a huff, I was left alone in the house, now legally mine, a house that had borne witness to so much pain, betrayal, and love. The walls seemed to echo with Allison's final wishes. The legacy felt heavy, like a mix of kindness from Allison and the burden of a broken family. Miles and Lucy returned the next day, anger fueling their every word. You really think you can just take everything? Miles burst out as he stepped in. I looked up, weary but resolute. Allison decided this, Miles. It was her choice. Lucy, red-faced and yelling, accused, you tricked a sick old lady. We won't let you get away with this. Standing up, fed up with their accusations, I countered, tricked. I was there for her, unlike you two. She chose to leave it to me. Miles was fuming. So you think you've beaten us? You think you can just snatch everything away? I let out a heavy sigh. I didn't snatch anything, Miles. Allison gave it to me because she knew I actually cared. Their yelling continued, but it was just noise against the solid truth I held. I was there for Allison when they weren't. Then, the lawyer arrived with a video Allison had made. Her voice filled the room, clear and firm. I left everything to Ruby because she was like the daughter I never had. She was there when my own kids weren't. She deserves it all. The room fell silent. Miles looked as if he had been punched in the gut, and Lucy, finally grasping the gravity of their neglect, started crying. After that, Miles and Lucy left, their threats dissolving into nothingness. Alone in the big house, surrounded by memories and pondering the future, I made a tough decision. I decided to divorce Miles. It was difficult, but necessary. He and his new family had to move to a rental place. Lucy faced her own turmoil, her debts and poor choices catching up to her. As for me, I stood in my new home, feeling a mix of sadness and excitement. Allison's will was more than just about assets, it was a mandate for strength and independence. I decided to start anew, using what Allison had left me to forge a new path for myself. The house, once a reminder of difficult times, was now a canvas for new beginnings. My name is Aurora, a 29-year-old woman who thrives on tidiness and organization. As an internal auditor at a prominent firm, my penchant for meticulous record-keeping and timely tax payments often becomes the subject of light-hearted banter among my friends. They might jest, but it's these precise habits that anchor the harmony in my life. Let me share with you the story of how I met my husband, Matteo. It was at a party hosted by our mutual friend, Natalie, where our paths first crossed. That evening, I was enjoying a glass of wine and reminiscing with college friends when Matteo made his entrance. A bit older than me, he carried himself with a confident air and had a smile that could light up a room. He was a manager at a floor supervisor. "Hey, I'm Matteo. Do you mind if I join you?" he asked, beer in hand and eyes meeting mine. "Sure, I'm Aurora." "Nice to meet you," I responded with a welcoming smile. Our conversation flowed effortlessly, and we quickly discovered our mutual love for hiking and classic rock music. A few months into dating, Matteo invited me to a barbecue hosted by his sister, Elena, marking my first encounter with his family. Although Elena was cordial, her 3 children presented a stark contrast. They were a whirlwind of energy, sprinting and tossing toys everywhere. "Hey, Elena, this is Aurora," Matteo introduced me. "Nice to meet you, Aurora. These are my little rascals, Enzo, Gail, and Anna," Elena managed to say, struggling to keep Gail from escaping her grip. I managed a polite response, masking my discomfort. As the night progressed, the children's antics escalated, climbing furniture, flinging food, and screeching. Matteo merely shrugged and chuckled, "Aren't they just full of energy?" I forced a smile, agreeing half-heartedly. Our relationship deepened, and Matteo proposed during a hike atop a scenic hill overlooking a valley. It was a modest yet heartwarming proposal, aligning perfectly with my tastes. Our wedding followed, beautiful yet momentarily disrupted by, you guessed it, Elena's kids. Once again, their unruly behavior went unchecked, causing a ruckus. Matteo found their mischief amusing, while I bit back my annoyance. "They are just kids, let them have fun," he reasoned. Wanting to preserve the joy of our day, I reluctantly agreed. Soon after marrying, Matteo and I decided it was time to buy our own home, moving on from our rented apartment to begin a new chapter together. Finding a place we could truly call our own was a thrilling prospect for both Matteo and me. One evening, after a long day at work, we sat down to discuss how we would manage the finances for our new home. "Aurora, we need to figure out how we are going to split the costs," Matteo said, settling into the couch. "Yeah, I've been thinking about that too," I responded. I offered to cover the costs for furniture, appliances, and some art pieces to decorate our home. Matteo then proposed, "How about I buy you a new car?" I know your old one has been troublesome. I was pleasantly surprised and overjoyed. Really? That would be amazing. My car is practically falling apart. Matteo nodded. I've seen it struggle. It's time you had something reliable, he added with a warm smile. We embarked on our house hunting journey immediately. After several weeks, we found a stunning house that we both fell in love with. It was a bit over our initial budget, but we decided it was worth the investment. Moving in was chaotic, but the excitement of decorating our new space kept my spirits high. I dedicated a lot of time to choosing high-quality, stylish furniture and appliances. On a surprise-filled Saturday, Matteo presented me with a sleek, shiny new sedan. Matteo, this is incredible. Thank you so much, I exclaimed, giving him a tight hug. You're welcome, Aurora. You deserve it, he replied, beaming with pride. As we settled into our new home, life initially seemed blissful. We both enjoyed our jobs and loved returning to our cozy space each day. However, small issues began to surface. Matteo's laid-back attitude, once charming, started to irk me, particularly regarding household chores. One evening after dinner, I asked, Matteo, can you help me with the dishes tonight? He looked at me with pleading eyes. I had a long day at work. Can't we just leave them for tomorrow? I insisted, Matteo, we can't keep putting things off. I'm tired too, but we need to keep this place clean. Reluctantly, he agreed, fine, I'll do it, and he sighed heavily as he rose from the couch. A few months into our marriage, I began to worry about not being able to get pregnant. It was an added stress, even though the doctor advised patience, saying it would happen when the time was right. Meanwhile, Matteo's sister Elena, who lived in a neighboring state, seemed to be around so often you'd think she lived next door. Every visit, she would unload her marital troubles on me, dominating our conversations. This non-stop outpouring during our dinners and relaxation time was starting to wear me down. We're just playing, and it was an accident, one of the kids muttered, eyes cast downward. The room was a mess, and the remnants of my cherished heirloom lay scattered across the floor. Elena, you won't believe what Leo did this time, she would often begin, rolling her eyes dramatically. I tried to shift our conversations to lighter topics, asking, Elena, can we talk about something else for a moment? However, she seemed oblivious to my hints. Oh, come on, Aurora, I need to vent. You're the only one who understands, she'd insist, keeping the focus firmly on her problems. Her children transformed our home into a chaotic circus every time they visited. They ran amok, bickering and hurling food, their voices echoing through the halls. After a taxing week at work, all I yearned for was a bit of tranquility, but peace was elusive with them around. Guys, could you please calm down? I would plead, striving to maintain my composure, as they rampaged through the living room. Why are you always so uptight, Aurora? Elena would chide whenever I attempted to instill some order. They are just making a mess, Elena, and I just cleaned the house, I'd reply, my patience fraying. Well, maybe if you had your own kids, you'd understand, she retorted one day, her words striking a raw nerve, especially painful given my struggles with fertility. I was shocked by her insensitivity. It felt like a deliberate jab, and Matteo's silence was deafening. Matteo, are you going to let her talk to me like that? I asked, my voice quivering with anger and disbelief. Aurora, calm down. You're making a big deal out of nothing, he replied, dismissively taking Elena's side yet again. A big deal out of nothing. She just insulted me in my own home. I exclaimed, the tears starting to gather. I was at my wit's end, tired of the constant disrespect in my own space, with my husband perpetually siding with his sister. It all came to a head one Saturday, when Elena showed up unexpectedly with her trio of whirlwinds. Aurora, I need a break from parenting. I'm going shopping, she announced, dumping her kids on me as if I were a mere backup plan. Her casual use of the term parenting almost made me laugh out loud. She hardly knew the meaning of it. "Fine, Elena, but make it quick," I said, the tension building inside me. "Thanks, Aurora, you're a lifesaver," she chirped, snatching her purse and darting out the door before I could respond. There I was, in the kitchen, attempting to prepare dinner, a task I usually enjoyed for its meticulous process. But with the kids' relentless antics, concentrating was a battle. They yelled and sprinted around, creating chaos. "Can you guys keep it down?" I shouted from the kitchen, hoping for a brief respite. Of course, they paid no heed. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the home. My heart dropped. I rushed into the living room to find my grandfather's antique Chinese vase shattered on the floor, a casualty of their wild play. I stood there, chest tight with anger and frustration, as the kids stared up at me, guilty yet silent. "What the hell happened here?" I screamed, overcome with emotion at the sight of the broken pieces of my heritage and patience. What I was hearing. The thought of Elena and her unruly kids moving in was almost too much to bear. "They were just playing," one of them mumbled, avoiding eye contact. "This vase is irreplaceable, it belonged to my grandfather. Do you understand what you've done?" I was seething, my hands trembling with fury. Just then, Matteo walked in, his demeanor calm and oblivious to the gravity of the situation. "What's going on, Aurora?" he asked. I pointed to the remnants of the vase scattered across the floor. "Your nephews just destroyed my grandfather's vase. Look at this mess." "Calm down, Aurora. It's just a vase. We can get another," he said, dismissively waving his hand as if it were nothing. "Just a vase. This isn't about the vase, Matteo. It's about respect. I'm sick of this. Every time Elena visits, our home turns into a war zone, and you just don't seem to care." My voice cracked under the strain of frustration. At that moment, Elena breezed in, shopping bags in hand, annoyed by the disturbance. "What's all this yelling about?" she demanded. "Your kids broke my grandfather's vase, Elena. Look at this mess." I gestured to the floor, struggling to hold back tears. "Well, maybe you should have kept a better eye on them," she retorted, showing no signs of remorse. "Are you kidding me? They are your children, Elena. I shouldn't have to watch them every second." I replied, my hands shaking with rage. Matteo just shook his head, annoyed. "You're overreacting, Aurora. Let it go." "Overreacting? I've had enough of this. I'm tired of being treated like I don't matter in my own home." I yelled, tears now streaming down my face. Matteo stood there, silent and cold, while Elena smirked, as if she had scored a point. I couldn't take it anymore. I stormed out of the room, overwhelmed by a torrent of anger, hurt, and betrayal. For months, we'd been dealing with Elena and her kids' chaotic visits, but what came next was utterly unexpected. One morning, as Matteo sat at the kitchen table nonchalantly eating his toast, he casually dropped a bombshell. "Aurora, I need to tell you something. Elena's getting divorced, and she's moving in with us with the kids, for a few months," he said as if discussing the weather. I nearly dropped my coffee. "Are you serious? Our house is already a madhouse when they visit for a day. How are we supposed to handle them living here for months? She's my sister, Aurora. She needs our help. You need to be more understanding," he replied, looking at me as though I were the unreasonable one. "Understanding? I've been more than understanding, Matteo, but this is too much. Why can't we rent a place for her nearby? I'll even pay for the first month's rent," I suggested, trying to remain composed. "No, she'll be better off here. Plus, you can help with the kids and keep things clean," he said, as if it were the most logical solution. "I'm not a babysitter, Matteo. I work too, and I need to relax when I get home," I retorted, my frustration reaching a boiling point. "Stop being so selfish, Aurora. It's family. They need us," he countered, his tone sharp. I'm not being selfish, Mateo. I'm just asking for a reasonable solution. I'm not going to let my life be turned upside down, I said, anger rising. Well, they're coming tomorrow evening, so you better get used to the idea, he stated bluntly, standing up and leaving the kitchen. I was left stunned, unable to believe the situation I was being forced into. I felt utterly betrayed and blindsided. The next morning, still seething from our fight, I got dressed for work and went to find my car keys, but they were nowhere to be seen. When I called Mateo, his voice was too calm, which irked me further. I took the car. It's mine, remember? I'm giving it to Elena so she can use it for the kids, he said casually. I was stunned into silence for a moment. You're giving my car to Elena? Are you serious right now? I managed to say. It's not your car, Aurora. I paid for it, and she needs it more than you do, he replied, his tone clinical. That was the final straw. Mateo, you've taken everything from me, and I'm done, I said, my voice quivering with anger. What are you talking about? Don't be dramatic, Aurora, he responded, clearly oblivious. Standing in the hallway, phone in hand, I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare. How had things spiraled so out of control? I dialed a moving company immediately. Hi, I need a team to move some furniture and appliances today. It's urgent. The movers arrived a few hours later. I walked them through the house, indicating what to take. Everything goes, the beds, sofas, chandeliers, even the faucets in the bathroom. As they worked, the house gradually emptied. With each item that left, a sense of relief washed over me. When the last piece was loaded, I directed them to my mother's house. Everything goes there. Thanks for the quick work, guys, I said, handing them a tip. With the house stripped bare, I gathered my essentials and drove to my mom's place. Soon, my phone buzzed incessantly with calls from Mateo, which I ignored, feeling a mix of anxiety and newfound empowerment. That evening, there was a loud knock at my mom's door. Opening it, I found Mateo, furious. What the hell, Aurora? What did you do? He shouted as he barged into the living room. I took my stuff, Mateo. You took the car, so I took what I bought, I said, maintaining my composure. This is insane. You stripped the house bare. Where are Elena and the kids supposed to sleep? He yelled, his face red with anger. That's your problem, Mateo. You made this mess, now you deal with it, I replied, standing my ground. You're a thief, Aurora. You stole everything, he accused, flailing his arms. I didn't steal anything. Here are the receipts, I said, pulling out a folder and showing him proof of purchase for all the furniture and appliances. He flipped through the receipts, his anger turning to frustration. Fine, Aurora. If this is how you want to play it, I'll file for divorce, he said begrudgingly. I took a deep breath and handed him a stack of papers. Already done. Here are the divorce papers. Sign them and we're done. He looked at the papers, his face turning pale. You're really serious about this, aren't you? Dead serious, Mateo. I deserve better than this, I said, a calm settling over me. He took a pen from his pocket, signed the papers without another word, and handed them back to me. Fine, Aurora. Have it your way, he said, defeated, as he turned and left. As he walked out and the door slammed shut behind him at my mom's house, I stood frozen for a moment, enveloped in a mixture of relief and a tinge of sadness. It was truly over, and deep down, I knew parting ways was the right decision. That evening, I sat down with my mom and poured my heart out about everything that had happened. She listened intently, her presence comforting. Aurora, you've been through so much. It's time you focus on yourself and find what makes you happy, she advised, wrapping me in a warm hug. Thanks, Mom. I just need some time to sort things out, I replied, feeling as if a massive burden had been lifted from my shoulders. In the days that followed, I began to embrace a new routine. I took to organizing my space at my mom's house and started thinking about what my next steps would be. It felt like a new beginning, and for the first time in a long while, I was hopeful about what the future might hold. The path ahead wasn't going to be simple, but I felt energized and ready to take on whatever came my way. Having reclaimed my life, there was no looking back. After the divorce, Mateo and I sold our house and divided the proceeds. It was time for me to truly establish my own space. My mom's house was a wonderful refuge for a while, but I craved a place of my own. One afternoon, while sitting in the kitchen with my mom, I browsed through apartment listings on my laptop. "Mom, I think I've found the perfect place. It's a cozy apartment downtown, close to work," I exclaimed, showing her the photos. She leaned over, peering at the screen, and smiled. "That looks nice, Aurora. Have you called the real estate assistant yet?" "Not yet, but I'm going to right now," I said, a ripple of excitement passing through me. I dialed the number, and after a few rings, a friendly voice greeted me. "Hello, this is Jacob. How can I help you?" "Hi Jacob, my name is Aurora. I'm interested in the downtown apartment you have listed. Is it still available?" I asked, fingers crossed. "Yes, it's still on the market. Would you like to schedule a viewing?" he replied, his voice hopeful. "Absolutely. How about tomorrow afternoon?" I suggested, trying to maintain a calm demeanor. "That works for me. I'll see you at 4:04 p.m., Jacob confirmed before we ended the call. The next day, I met Jacob downtown. He greeted me with a friendly smile outside the building. "Hi Aurora, nice to meet you. Let me show you around," he said, shaking my hand. The apartment was compact but charming, featuring a well-appointed kitchen, a spacious living room, and a small balcony that offered a pleasing city view. "This place is perfect, Jacob. I'll take it," I declared, a wave of relief washing over me. After signing the mortgage agreement and receiving the keys, I began to plan my move. I wanted to personalize this new space and truly make it my own. Over the next few days, I packed up my belongings at my mom's house and arranged for movers to assist with the heavier items. On moving day, my mom and a few close friends helped out. As we loaded the last box onto the moving truck, a mix of excitement and nervous anticipation about this new chapter bubbled up inside me. "Aurora, this is going to be great for you. A fresh start is just what you need," my mom said, giving me a reassuring hug. "Thanks, Mom. I'm really looking forward to it," I replied, my heart full of hope and eagerness to begin anew. Smiling broadly, we drove to my new apartment, and with everyone's enthusiastic help, we had everything unloaded and set up in no time. As I looked around my new space, I felt a deep sense of accomplishment and peace. It was the beginning of a new chapter, and I was wholly ready for it. That evening, I invited my mom and friends to stay for dinner to celebrate the move. We ordered pizza and gathered on the floor, surrounded by unpacked boxes and bursts of laughter. "Cheers to Aurora and her new place," my friend Natalie exclaimed, raising her glass of soda. "Thanks, guys. I really appreciate all your help and support," I said, my heart swelling with gratitude. As the night unfolded, we talked and laughed, and for the first time in a long time, I felt truly happy and liberated. After the party, as I sat on my balcony looking out at the city lights, I reflected on everything I had been through and how far I had come. I was proud of myself for taking control of my life and making the necessary changes. Through some mutual friends, I learned that Mateo had used his share of the money to buy a small apartment, where he now lived with Elena and her 3 kids. He was working 2 jobs to keep up with the bills, while Elena remained unemployed and they were constantly fighting. One day, out of the blue, Mateo called me. His name popping up on my phone was a surprise, but I answered, curious about what he had to say. "Hello, Mateo. What's up?" I answered, striving to keep my voice neutral. "Aurora, Please just hear me out, he began, his voice desperate. I know I messed up. I'm so sorry for everything. I didn't realize how hard it was for you with Elena's kids. I couldn't help but laugh a little. Really, Matteo? You're realizing this now, after all this time? Yeah, I know it's late, but I'm serious. I've been thinking a lot, and I miss you. I miss us. Can we start over? I'm ready to move into your apartment and make things right, he said, his voice almost pleading. I chuckled, shaking my head in disbelief. Matteo, you've got to be kidding me. You think you can just waltz back into my life like nothing happened? Aurora, I'm serious. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll even take on more work to make it up to you, he said, sounding even more desperate. Matteo, I've moved on. I'm happy now. I'm not looking to go back to that mess, I replied firmly. Come on, Aurora. We can make it work this time. I've changed, he insisted. I sighed, feeling a mix of pity and irritation. Matteo, it's over. You need to focus on your life and your family. I'm not interested in going back to that chaos. Aurora, please. I'm begging you, he said, his voice breaking. Matteo, no. I found peace without you. I'm not giving that up, I stated resolutely. Take care, Matteo. I hope you find your way. I hung up the phone, feeling a strange mix of relief and closure. It was clear that Matteo was struggling, but I couldn't let his problems drag me back into a situation I had worked so hard to escape. Later that day, I met up with Natalie for coffee and shared the story of the call. You won't believe who called me today, I said, rolling my eyes. Who? Natalie asked, raising an eyebrow. Matteo. He actually begged me to take him back and let him move into my apartment, I said, shaking my head. Natalie laughed, almost spitting out her coffee. Are you serious? What did you say? I told him no, of course. I'm not going back to that mess, I replied, smiling. We spent the rest of the afternoon chatting and laughing, and I realized just how far I had come. I had built a new life for myself, one that was peaceful and fulfilling. I wasn't going to let anyone take that away from me. As I walked home, I felt a profound sense of satisfaction and peace. I had finally closed the chapter on that part of my life, and was ready to move forward with confidence and joy.